Hello, my name is Kiriath, Herald of Nurgle, an actual human plague bearer, and today we're going to compare a few sci-fi universes to Warhammer 40,000 and see who comes out on top for sheer military foot. It's Warhammer 40k, it's always Warhammer 40,000. In fact, that is what this video is about. Now, there is a considerable number of videos, articles, lists, and so on and so forth out there that take various fictional science fiction universes, fictional science fiction, that was a bit redundant, and compare them to each other. And whenever Warhammer 40,000 appears alongside these other universes, whether it be Halo or Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever, funnily enough, 40k always wins. And there's a very good reason for this, and every now and again, I mean, I don't know why I continue to read them, because they all basically say the same thing, which is, yes, 40k wins. There's always kind of someone there who's going, I don't understand why they always win this. Why do they always win these things? What is the formula for this? Well, really, the problem is that the Warhammer 40,000 universe doesn't fit into any formula for really any other science fiction universe. I mean, even universes that contain things like super soldiers, such as Halo, I think it was the Spartan 2s, were they the most impressive out of all of them? Even they are just not quite at the same level of essentially batshit lunacy that is Warhammer 40,000. Warhammer 40,000 basically took the kind of extreme meter, turned it up to 11, and then just twisted the dial all the way round again, so it went past 11 for a second time. I mean, when you look at the relatively sensible way in which Spartan 2s were created, a bit of genetic modification, serious training regimen, and of course is it Mjolnir armor? I'm not massively up on my Halo lore, but the power armor they wear, it's reasonable, it's incredibly strong, they are very impressive, and it's still not anywhere near on the same level as Warhammer 40k. And I guess part of it is to do with the kind of respective power levels, if you want to put it that way, but also scale. And what you can do to kind of get the overreaching reason as to why, the overarching reason, as to why Warhammer 40k always wins, what you kind of have to do is look at the poster boy for 40k and then expand it up. Just billow it out there so that it encompasses the entire universe, right? So, the poster boy for 40k, the iconic face of Warhammer 40,000, is of course the humble Space Marine, who is not that humble when you consider that, well, just to give you a vague idea, say for instance Master Chief did manage to have a fight with, what would be a kind of relative position to Master Chief? I guess like a Space Marine captain, maybe. If he did successfully manage to, for instance, shoot him in the heart and chop one of his arms off, the Space Marine would still be alive and in nearly full fighting condition. Space Marines are insanely resilient for a number of reasons. So, firstly, out of a whole bunch of hopefuls who want to become Space Marines, basically only the best are selected. The best are then put through horrendous, rigorous trials which will usually result in them dying or becoming disformed or maimed or whatever. And then the few survivors, the few ones who actually make it through these trials, are then selected to begin training and essentially join the Space Marine program, where you get turned into a 7 to 8 feet tall genetically modified monster who is barely human at all. Once you get to that stage, you get a few treats, like as what almost no one in any other science fiction universe gets, like a second heart, just in case your first one, gets stabbed or something. I think you even get a third lung, don't you? You also get some new sort of organs to help you along your way. Is it the Bletcher's gland that allows you to spit acid? I believe that's one of them. There's also the ability to kind of gain memories and information by eating the flesh of your enemies, which is hilarious. There's also a organ which essentially just makes it so that you can't be poisoned ever. It just filters poison out of your system. You also have blood that clots almost instantly. And to top it all off, you get the black carapace, which is kind of central to the Space Marine. It's I don't even know how you describe this to people who don't know what 40k is. I know you lot know, but just in case. Imagine a breastplate made of bone that sits under your skin and allows you to communicate with your power armor that is impervious to nearly everything but anti-tank weapons. That'll about do it. Yeah, so even unarmoured, a Space Marine is incredibly hard to kill. They are ridiculously fast, they are ridiculoly strong, they are insanely resilient with multiple redundancies for almost every major organ, except the brain. Why didn't Cole do that? Where's the second brain? Where's that, Cole? Sort yourself out, mate. They are then placed in power armour, which is, by the standard of every other science fiction universe, ludicrously overpowered. And it also does almost nothing to hinder their speed and agility. So they're still fast, they're still strong, they're still quicker than you, but they also weigh like a ton and can just battering ram their way through walls if they really want to. So that's nice. Oh, and they get their weapons, which could be, depending on whether they're an assault specialist or a range specialist, they could get a bolter, which is basically a portable rocket launcher. It looks like a gun. It's not really a gun. It just doesn't function that way. It's more like a rocket launcher. And or you could take a heavy bolter, which is, well, it's like a bolter, but heavier. Bigger, fires bigger stuff. It's just ridiculous. You could, for instance, get a power sword, which has the ability to slice through the armour that is almost impervious to everything else. Or you could get a chainsword, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a sword and a chainsaw combined. It is as badass as that as well. And that's the Space Marine. That's the poster boy. He is way above pretty much every other sort of special super soldier in almost every other science fiction universe, because in the 40k universe, he is likely to die in one hit from something else. And this is where the kind of scale thing comes in. So what you need to do to really get a good picture as to how imbalanced it is and how the kind of relative power levels are so off is you need to consider that Space Marines operate in chapters, okay? And there are about 1,000 Space Marines per chapter if they're following the Codex, which a lot of them don't. And there are about 1,000 chapters of Space Marine. That's a lot of Space Marines. And they are the special forces. They are the ones that are the elites. They're also not even the strongest things in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. And this is the thing. This is where it just gets sort of the scale and the relative levels just go completely out the window and makes it so that these comparisons always result in 40k winning. These Space Marines are insanely strong. There are 1,000 times 1,000 of them. They also don't just fight alone. Quite often they'll be supporting the Imperial Guard. Now, if you want to know how many Imperial Guard there are, you are shit out of luck, matey boy. The Imperium of Man consists of roughly 1 million planets. Yeah, that's a lot of planets. And the Imperial Guard are recruited from a significant number of these million planets. Now, if you assume that there's an average population of 5 to 6 billion people per planet, and that you want to say, I don't know, maybe out of that you want 500. No, let's just take it down. So let's say you want 50 million guardsmen per planet out of 6 billion population. Well, 50 million guardsmen per planet, and there are 1 million planets. That's a lot of guardsmen. Now, that's obviously not even correct maths. Like, that's just literally an example of how many there could be. There's no way to calculate it. There's literally no way to calculate how many people there are in the Imperium's main army, which is the Imperial Guard. It is that big. It's that vast. So you see, the scale is totally off. It's just completely mental off. There's no way to possibly reconcile it with other universes. Like, the things where it's like, how would the Federation from Star Trek fare against the Imperium? I mean, the Federation doesn't consist of 1 million planets, does it? It doesn't have 1 million planets. Like, one planet could very well house a regiment of Imperial Guard the same size as the entire armed forces of the Federation. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but it really isn't. And that's the crazy thing. There are things like fortress worlds in Warhammer 40k. There are entire worlds which are dedicated simply to being an actual fortress. That's mental. It's so far off the scale. And then you need to get down to really the biggest issue of all, which is that the Space Marine, the poster boy, the guy who is always used for these comparisons with other stuff, the point of reference for other universes to Warhammer 40k, he's not even the strongest thing in 40k. Like, this is where it gets even more stupid. The Space Marine is not even the strongest thing in 40k anymore. But he hasn't been for quite some time. He's not even the strongest Space Marine anymore. There are now Primaris Space Marines, which are like Space Marines, only bigger and stronger and faster. I mean, how do you compare that? It's like, okay, well, how about the Empire from Star Wars versus the Imperium? What would it look like? What would it look like if Darth Vader fought a Space Marine? Well, assuming that he could get sort of, close enough to do anything with his lightsaber, it probably wouldn't end well for him. If we're allowing things like force powers and stuff, maybe he could take out one or two. As long as you just hope there's nothing in the way of, like, librarians for Space Marines hanging around. Because, of course, Space Marines also have access to their own mad psychic shit. I mean, there are librarians who are capable of summoning lightning out of their hands, Emperor style, from Star Wars. There are also librarians who are capable of summoning visions of their enemies' worst fears and having them replace reality for a short amount of time. Now, I'm sorry, but how the fuck are you supposed to contend with that? How is any universe supposed to contend with that? And there's also things that I've seen occasionally where it's like, what if everyone is at their peak? What if it's like peak powers? Okay, well, if we're taking everything at their peak, then you have to contend with the God Emperor of Mankind. So called because he is essentially a god. This is someone who made a 100,000 strong legion of Space Marines kneel just by telling them to kneel, and because he is that incredibly psychically potent, they had no choice. Their bodies literally disobeyed them and they were forced to kneel in the dust in front of him. He is beyond overpowered. Now, the thing is, it sounds stupid when you say it in isolation. When you say that, it's like, well, there's a God Emperor of Mankind. When you say that there are 1,000 upon 1,000 Space Marines, it sounds insane. When you say you can't even calculate the number of Imperial Guard in the Imperium of Man, that there's no way of doing it. Oh, by the way, we haven't even talked about the Custodes, which are the Emperor's personal guard, who are better than Space Marines. We haven't talked about, for instance, the Gal Vorbak, which are demon-possessed Space Marines. We haven't talked about the Primarchs, either when they were all Loyalist, or when they split, and some of them became, well, half of them, became Demon Primarchs. We haven't even talked about that in terms of relative power levels. It's just off the chart. Now, it sounds daft. When you compare it to other universes, it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why are they so strong? Well, they're so strong because everything else in the 40k universe is as strong as the Imperium of Man. The whole universe is like that. It's not just individuals. It's not just certain troops or certain armies or certain characters that have been turned all the way up, that have been boosted beyond sane levels. It's literally everything. Everything in 40k is that mad. It's that crazy. There are planet-killing ships just roaming around. There are Chaos Space Marines that have been genetically modified and have been, like, worked on in weird, crazy ways that can use their guns to fire sonic blasts that literally just tear matter apart. I mean, what? For instance, you could get a Wordbearer's Sorcerer onto, say, a Super Star Destroyer, and then just have him summon just wave after wave of demons. I mean, we haven't even got into the Chaos Gods yet. The Chaos Gods are ridiculous by themselves. And this is the thing, in 40k, everything is overpowered because everything it has to fight is overpowered. Everything is insanely strong. Everything is insanely difficult to kill. For all that we've talked about Space Marines being resilient, you can literally shoot off half the head of an orc and it will still pick you up and rip you in half. Orcs are incredibly strong. Now, there are some races where it's like, well, no, they're not that strong. Eldar aren't that strong. Well, your average Eldar isn't that strong. No. They do have constructs made out of something called Wraithbone, which can just ruin your day in a very severe manner. They have an incredibly skilled number of psychic units that can just tear you apart from range. Things like the Tau, for instance. They don't have anything in the way of special abilities. They don't have psychic stuff or anything like that. No, they've just got access to battle suits with railguns on them that will kill you from 4 miles away before you can even see them. Do you see what I mean? Everything is OP. Everything in 40k is OP. And everything in 40k is OP compared to everything else in 40k. It's a never-ending cycle of, that's way too strong. Oh no, it's dead. I mean, I'll give you the perfect example. And this is a spoiler for the Wordbearers trilogy. So if you haven't watched it. If you haven't read that, then, I mean, go away and read it. It's very good. But it's also been out for ages. So, spoiler warning. In the Wordbearers trilogy, I can't remember what his name is. Jarelek, I believe his name is. There is a dark apostle for the Wordbearers. He is incredibly powerful. He is psychically potent to an insane degree. And he fights the chapter champion of the White Consuls. Now, the Wordbearers are a Chaos Space Marine chapter. They fall into the Dark Gods. They're all about that Dark God worship, a bit of blood sacrifice, a bit of summoning demons, all of that stuff. The White Consuls are just a loyalist chapter, and their chapter champion is the best they have. He is incredibly skilled. He has never lost a duel. He has literally never lost a fight. He is that good. The Wordbearer's Dark Apostle kills him unarmoured and unarmed. He just kills him. The White Consuls chapter champion has one of their best weapons. He has his power armour, and he gets taken apart piece by piece by an unarmed, unarmoured Wordbearer's traitor Space Marine. Now that is mental. What's even more mental than that is about 10 pages later, that same Dark Apostle who just killed another Space Marine, unarmed, literally gets cut in half by a Grey Knight Terminator, which is another kind of Space Marine. Even the Space Marines are more overpowered than each other in a never-ending loop of, holy shit, what is that about? You just can't compare them. It just doesn't work. It's never going to work, because there is no other science fiction universe that is anywhere near the level of, just idiotically overpowered as Warhammer 40k is. Now, don't get me wrong, that's what makes 40k great. The sheer size, the sheer spectacle, the sheer, magnitude of it all, that's what makes 40k so good. But it also makes it impossible for you to compare it to anything else, because nothing else is on the same, it's just not on the same platform, it's just not on the same level in any respect. It's mental. Anyway, that was meant to be short, and it wasn't short. What can I say? I just like ranting about how massively daft and awesome 40k is. I can't help myself. Anyway, that is why 40k always wins on these lists and videos about who would win, 40k or someone else. It's because it's the best. It's the biggest. It's the best. It is the very definition of go big or go home. They have turned it up past 11 and then turned it up past 11 again. And that's why it's awesome as well. Thank you very much for watching. There's the usual array of links all over the screen. There's videos, subscribe, Patreon, all of that garbage. Click it if you like. Don't click it if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you. And I will see you for the next video. Thank you for watching. Toodaloo.